I'm real grateful for the opportunity to speak with the group, and I am going to move this over here so I can get a little more head on directly with you. Um, I met Linda at Macstock, and I'll talk a little bit about Macstock, and because this presentation is directly related to what I'm going to be doing at Macstock. We've changed it up a little bit for this year, and but you're getting the nuts and bolts of troubleshooting your Mac and iOS, and ways that you can do it, things that you should consider. Grateful for being asked to be here. I'm happy to come and present anytime. I work as a educator. That is at Kent State here in Ohio. So I teach at Kent State. I teach in a field that's not tech related, counselor education. But for the last, well, since 1996, I have been looking at how technology influences and can influence our field or my field, which is counseling and counselor training and the practice of training. And I started back with listservs. I was a PC guy up until 2005. So I'm relatively new to the game compared to many of the folks in this group. And started using Macs in 2025 when I started doing podcasts, and Mac had a option. I was using a iPod with a little video camera or a little screen on it, and you could do these things called enhanced podcasts. And I thought, oh, this is cool. I can take my PowerPoint slides, turn them into to GIFs, and do a podcast or a lecture, and people could combine them both. And I always kind of have a little bit of a competitive streak when it comes to technology, particularly in my field, and want to get the first thing out. So I started using a Mac and never turned back at that point. I am currently, I'd call myself a podcaster or a YouTuber because you can't do podcasting without doing YouTube nowadays. And the website that contains all the different podcasts that I do is the podtalk.net. Here is a little secret about me. I never have Mac problems, so I'm probably the worst person to talk to you about having Mac problems. What I've got here is some ideas. Probably these are ideas that are not new to a lot of you, but I've got them here, and then I've got some potential ways and pathways that you can do solutions. The best part of who I am right now is I'm on the cusp of my retirement. I could go any day now. And I'm in higher education, and you know how higher education is these days. They just tick me off one time too many, and I'm out of there. So I'm excited, and in fact, I'm enjoying my job more because I know I'm on the cusp of retirement. I enjoy my teaching more. I enjoy my students more. I enjoy the writing that I get to do more because, I could take that away anytime I want to. Um, why do I never have problems? And ways maybe to minimize yours. I am in a competition, I think, with Dave Ginsburg for new equipment. And we've developed a relationship over podcasts over the last couple of years, and it's always, what are you going to get next? I like to say that I don't buy new equipment, I just lease equipment because I'll have it for a year. And then it's like the new one comes out. It's okay. What can I do? What do I get out of this to trade up? How much is it going to cost me? And so I think it's a factor in me not having problems because I don't deal with equipment failures, just never deal with it. I also have an uncomplicated setup. I hear a lot of folks with problems with, and then you find out how what they have connected and how they have it connected. My setup is very simple. I do have three screens here, And I use those for work. I use those for what it, but it's rather uncomplicated um, with the process. So uncomplicating your setup, I think, is what's helped me. I don't even do wireless printers because that whole process mystifies me. And the wireless router doesn't connect, and then you lose the. So I finally gave up, and I just bought a Brother printer, and I hardwired it into my system, and now I don't have any printer problems. So I try to uncomplicate as much. Whatever you think of maintenance, there are folks who think, oh, Mac doesn't need maintenance. I use maintenance pretty regularly. I use Clean My Mac. I have Malwarebytes running. I have used Onyx in the past and then Mac Updater, which is no longer, but there are a couple of apps that you can look at, latest or updatest, as apps that will scan your system and look for software that's maybe not in the Apple ecosystem doing the automatic updates, but is outside of the Apple ecosystem and will check for updates on that. The other thing I do, and I don't understand this, why people don't do this at this point, all my data and documents are backed up in the cloud. I don't worry about losing photos on my phone because they're not on my phone. They're in the cloud. I don't worry about losing material for school because it's all on folders that are backed up in the cloud. I also do external backups, hard drive backups. So there's some redundancy in the material that I have between cloud backup and also hard drive backup. So these are the kinds of things that don't cause me problems. Um, Now I say that, and Dave is probably laughing, although I can't hear him. I had a major system crash about 2 weeks ago. Um, the beauty of it was I had a Mac Mini that had all of my programs on it, sort of a second computer. So I was able to swap out my studio, run the Mac Mini M4, and I had some catching up to do on that and had some setup to do on that. But frankly, it was there sitting by the side ready to work. Here's what I did. I used a beta on a work machine. I have never had a problem with betas. That's the other weird thing about me. You listen to people, and the warning is don't use a beta. It's gonna, it's eventually gonna fail on you. I don't have that gene in my body that I think carried over from the 80s for people who used Macs. I do betas. I typically don't have problems with betas. I tried to install something at the same time. There was some combination that crossed paths, and I think it was an installation of a beta while something else was going on, and my system just locked up. So here's the that's the bad news. The good news is I had to start fresh, and we'll talk about that. That means I had to build it from the ground up, got rid of all the junk that was on there, and had it running in about 2 days. I was able to make the swap over for the essential stuff that I was doing. So let's talk a little bit about the thinking and the process. There's a troubleshooting mindset. All of you have this. When a problem occurs, and I know this, I teach counseling and problem solving and all that. When a problem occurs, your troubleshooting is it's not a process of eliminate. It's a process of elimination. It's not guessing. So it's sort of like Columboing it. You know, let's remove all the variables, and if we remove the variables and we do that as a process of elimination, we'll come to a solution. So you can do things like change one thing at a time. If you have a complicated setup, sometimes that means unplugging things that you plugged in. But you want to start with safe and reversible steps. And when things feel unclear, that's maybe when you need to stop and look at it. I will give you some other cool stuff about this. Um, I saw this and I thought this was interesting. This is when it came to computers, there are 5 layers of troubleshooting. These are 5 areas where essentially computing can fail. And I know I'm going to say this, but I assume this is the slides I've made available. I just sent them to Robert. And when they can be converted, they'll be converted and you can get all this stuff back. And you'll be able to use it and have it. So the 5 layers are hardware, operating system, apps, network, and user configuration. Typically, most of the problems, 80% of the problems occur with apps, network, and user configuration. Hardware, that's not a high percentage of fail. Operating system, generally, if you keep it updated, and Linda suggested the needs for updates in a lot of areas. I think that's good. You keep your operating system update. It's not going to cause you a lot of fails or a lot of problems, but it's often app problems, network problems, or user configuration are the ones that take up 80% of the problems with this. And I don't know what the process here is. If there are questions or need for questions, I can stop and take them. Linda, what do you think?
It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with, Marty. If you want,
Well, let me
jump-
go a little ways because I can't see if things are being printed in the chat or in the chat just with the configuration I have.
yeah, no, at the moment it's the chat is
Okay, all right. Well, I'll stop and check in, and
Okay.
but here's some big picture logic in terms of observing the symptom, classifying the problem type, reducing variables like what's plugged in and what you're running at the same time, test things safely while you do it, and then decide when you need to escalate. And for me, escalate is go to a genius bar. That's what I see as escalation. There's things that, of course, you can do with Apple support online for a lot of things. Um, but sometimes you have to decide this is too big for me to fix. I've gotten too deep into it, and the things that I've tried haven't worked. And frankly, the 2 times in my life I've been to the Genius Bar, the guys knew that I knew more about my computer than the average users. And they were like, okay, I'm going to do some things that you just told me that you had done. Don't take it as an insult. It's what I need to do to make sure things are. And they were very polite when they're like, yep, you're right. That wasn't it. Yep, you're right. That wasn't it. So, the Genius Bar, eventually what happened was they did a nuke and pave of my machine and had to do stuff with it that I couldn't do just by simply at home in order to do it. Um, so you can do these, you observe the symptoms and be as specific around the symptoms as you can. So if there are error messages that come up, copy them down or copy and paste them. What I use is text sniper, and I will copy the text out of the image that comes up telling me what the error message is, because that will come in handy in trying to address the problems or problem that you might have. Um, so here are some core problem categories. I'm giving you this a lot of list of stuffs to look at. Again, you'll get the slides, but it has meaning when we get to the end part of my presentation, because these are all components in a problem-solving process that you can use. Um, but you'll see the kinds of things that people see as problem areas: startup boot problems, hot battery drain. How come it says I'm out of storage and I know I have this much storage left? network and cloud issues, peripherals, login issues that are problems or permissions, or something is just not running right with your computer. So um, this is what the Genius Bar will tell you, or even online support will tell you. Have you restarted it yet? Um, I was listening to somebody. It was Mike Potter who does MacStock, and it was part of a conversation we were having, and he said he finally got the problem that he had heard about, but he didn't believe actually existed when he was called to fix something in somebody's work, and he said, "Is it plugged in?" And sure enough, it wasn't plugged in. And he said, I always thought that was a joke, but restarting your Mac, many people in the process of being all wound up because they can't solve a problem, they can't figure out what's going on, don't think of the obvious, which is restart your Mac. Um, Take a notation of anything that's changed. Have you added a new piece of software? Have you added a beta? Nah. Um, Check your available storage space to make sure that you have enough storage, because sometimes that expanded storage is what's needed and is what's slowing down or causing problems. Disconnect any extra peripherals that you don't know. And then, we'll talk about safe mode. But you can try it again and observe what happens once you've done some of these things. If the problem still persists, then you've eliminated a lot of the problems by going through this checklist and narrowed it down. Again, the process of elimination is what's important here. I love this diagram. I love it because this is the logical step of what you should do if, for example, your Mac is running slow. Well, check the activity monitor. Go in and look under utilities. There's an activity monitor that you can look at. Things like Wi-Fi problems, take it to another network. Today was at Kent State University was registration for fall classes. It started at 12 o'clock midnight, about 11 hours ago. And I wake up on the day of class registration to a series of emails from students who couldn't get the course they wanted, and their life will be ruined forever because they couldn't get that course. Or I got one today where the guy said, I kept trying to connect to the thing, and it kept told me that the connection wasn't working. And I thought, it's a computer problem. It's a Wi-Fi problem, most likely. And so I emailed them back and I said, there was nothing wrong with the registration system from what I heard, because I'm getting students who couldn't get the course they wanted. So the registration system works, not the way they wanted it to, but it sounds like maybe you need to try a different Wi-Fi system. Take your laptop somewhere else and see if that's what the connection issue is, or call, I think it's 672 HELP, which is our university computer assistance for students. So again, I'm not going to run through all of these, but if you just take a look at them, you'll see, yeah, peripherals not working. Well, disconnect them and reconnect them. Battery draining fast. Check your battery health. There are all sorts of things here that are on this list that are the 10 common Mac problems, and then steps you should take to do that. And I just went backwards. There we go. Thing you want to do is also, oh, Gary's got a question. Gary, let's hear it. Thank you for raising your hand.
Yeah, thank you. Just to back up a little bit on the restart, I haven't encountered this lately, but I know previously on different systems, over the years, I found a difference between a restart and a power down, power up. And I
Yeah.
had one problem, I remember this because I had an issue and I wasn't getting fixing it. And then I found I get a whole different set of events happen when I did the complete power down. I was able to fix it and boot back up, reload software and all that. But there was a difference between a simple restart, selecting a restart and then a power down and then power up. I don't know if you've encountered that or
Yeah. Thank you when I say restart, I really mean power down and power up. And that's a great differentiation because we have that little thing that says restart when
right.
we want to shut our Mac off. And so, saying that, thank you for saying that. That really clarifies it. When I say restart, for me, it's cold start. It's going all the way down, shutting down. There are also some things that you can do in terms of key combinations to reset. I guess it's NVRAM. I can't remember what it is, to kind of clear some of the memory back to uh, the original setup, and that sometimes helps. But yeah, exactly. I have never thought about just pressing a restart. I always think about shutting down and turning back on, and let the computer have the full opportunity to reset up or reconnect or disconnect from the peripheral that's not working in order for it to be more cleaner in terms of what you're doing. Man, thank you for that, Gary. Um, so yeah, here's some questions that you can ask in terms of being specific about what happens exactly, when did it start, constant or occasional, does it affect one app or the whole Mac? And does it happen for all users? So if you have multiple users on your computers, I don't, so that's never a question that I have with it. But in some cases, you might have multiple users if you have a home computer. Um, so isolation is key. One app versus the whole system, users versus all user. Kind of just mentioned this. Does it happen before login versus after login? Is there like a startup before you get to that login process? Or are you seeing this after login? And then with accessories or without? So again, some redundancy in those ideas. So safe mode can be used as a diagnostic tool. In my case, with the last crash that I had, safe mode didn't do doodly squat for me. Um, it did load I think the whole problem was I needed to reload the operating system. Loads Mac OS with minimal extras, helps identify software conflicts. Um, if the problem disappears, then suspect login items or utilities. And that's where I went into the keyboard combinations that would clear up and reset the login for memory and for allocation of stuff like that. When I did have to use safe mode, it gave me an opportunity to see that the thing's running now on safe mode. So then I restarted using the key combination to kind of clear and reset the memory issues. There's also a function of activity monitor. So if something's really sluggish, you can go into your utilities folder, find activity monitor, and see what apps are pulling a lot of the memory or seem to be running funny, or when you start certain apps, you get a really big jump in resource use based on starting that app. Those are things that would give you some more information in terms of what's potentially going wrong with your system. I was using RapidWeaver a lot um, for website development, and I stopped using RapidWeaver because it was so slow on its upgrades that when a new operating system came out, it was like I couldn't do the upgrade because I had to wait for RapidWeaver to catch up. So situations where you have software interfering with the function of CPU usage and things like that, I wound up completely going off that and moving to just sort of web-based development instead of app-based development with that. And again, if questions come up, if you can raise your hand, what'll happen is it'll come to the top of my list like it happened with Gary, and that's how I was able to see him. When apps keep crashing, notice any patterns, check the console crash reports, which are also part of a utility. You can update or reinstall affected apps. That is one of the most easy solutions to the problem when you're having problems with apps is if you uninstall them and reinstall them, often that fixes the problems 50 to 60% of the time. It just, for some reason, it lost that part it needed. And by uninstalling them cleanly, and that's where I use Clean My Mac, or I know I'm getting the libraries cleaned out of the installation. That's where I'll do that, and I reinstall it. And 67% of the time, it's functional again, unless there's an update that I missed on that app. But when I reinstall it, I'm generally reinstalling an updated version. So that could also be the solution. Apple Diagnostics, and I've given you a link here for a page that tells you how to do Apple Diagnostics and the steps that you can take in doing diagnostics, will help determine whether it's a hardware or software issue. And you can kind of use the results that you get from your diagnostics test on it. That's very helpful. I found Apple communities and asking questions in Apple communities not as successful because I have, when I go to communities, if I type in a question about what something's not working, I'll go to an Apple support community, and it's a problem that was raised 4 years ago, and there's no real clear solution to the problem. And so I find the communities not as helpful in looking for potential solutions. Sometimes you wonder that that was put in there 4 years ago and nobody came up with an answer. However, I'm still getting the problem. Sometimes you'll see people who say, yeah, I got that problem too. I got that problem too, waiting for an answer that never comes. So some places are better than others. Here's my logic. I don't want to deal with too much frustration since I have everything backed up. Today was a wonderful day. I went to take my wife's car in for brake work. When I took it in, or when I talked about it about a month ago, and we haven't driven it until we decided we'd bring it in, they said, $1,100 to $1,400. I took it in, and within 20 minutes, they had it up on the rack and they said $2,800. Now I'm putting in well, it's not just the brakes, it's a bunch of other stuff, the brushes and things I don't understand. So I'm putting $2,800 into a car, and the question is, I fixed it. What else is going to break next? And the thing for me, sometimes when you're dealing with problems with computers, it's better to nuke and pave because you're starting out fresh. The operating system is up to date, it's fresh. As you add programs, they're added without complications of other programs at the time. They're newer versions of the programs that you're adding. So it's adding So like I told you with my studio when it crashed last week, I was like dreading it. I said, I'm going to spend my spring break just loading computer software on this computer. And instead, took me about 2 days. And I continued doing the work that I had with my other my other computer that I had. So disk utility is helpful. First aid will find things for it. You can reinstall a Mac OS without erasing data, which is another thing that you can do. And there are other steps that you can take where you just wipe the whole drive clean, and through connecting to the internet, it downloads a fresh version of the software. And that's what I did with my studio. So. And my studio is, I think, last generation. So it's a new product. It's not an old it's not old hardware. So but you can use recovery and repair options, particularly disk utility. Search engines, I mentioned, copy the exact error message in quotes that you're getting. I sit as part of the Northeast Ohio Mac user group. Well, we're Apple Core, NeoAC. Um, and every Saturday morning, somebody brings a problem that says, I've got this problem. And they will talk to the group in Zoom. And as soon as they start talking, I will type the problem into a search engine. And one of them, I couldn't take it. The guy was having problems with perplexity on his iPad trying to import files, which importing files on iPads are problems anyways. But he was trying to edit a file on his iPad using perplexity. So I have a little snarky side of myself. Oh, Linda, I think, has probably seen it. But while he was talking about it, I clicked on my copy of Perplexity and I typed in his question. And Perplexity told me the answer, that he couldn't do it. So then I reported back, well, I just checked this out on Perplexity, and you can't edit files on Perplexity. You can't edit Word documents by popping them into Perplexity. It doesn't work as an editor. You can put in PDFs and it can read it, and you can do different things like that. So these are really simple ways to get answers to questions just by asking search engines, even using Chrome and putting it in the Chrome version I have. And I know Robert was talking about Chrome. The Chrome version I have, you type it in, and at the top, you get what used to be, I think, laboratory, they called it. And you get a nice AI generated step-by-step thing that you could do. It's pretty good. It really is pretty good. Um, and that will often work, but you have to put in all the material that you can. So add the Mac OS version, add the model that you're using in terms of the computer that you're using, give as many details as you can, just type. And it will then give you places where you can find solutions. I think if you can find some of the sites or prefer to Apple support and trusted communities that you can get, that's the best place to get solutions to. But using search engines effectively is a good way to do this. Um, now, this is where I kind of interface with another area that I spend a lot of time with, which is LLMs. And in my field in counseling, people are afraid of them. They're going to become sentient beings someday soon, and we'll all be out of work. All the kinds of craziness that people will purport about them. LLMs can be very helpful. And particularly, you can do this step by step. I'm trying to support my uh, Mac user group to start to use these to solve problems before they come with the problem to um, to the mug. The problem, part of the problem is, well, I've got this 2017 Mac computer and it's running Leopard or whatever. And I can't figure out why this doesn't. Can you figure this out for me? And it's like, spend some of the money that you have for your grandchildren and buy yourself a new computer. It'll solve a lot of your problems. But, you know, trying to get them to be more proactive in not waiting for an expert. And I by no means am an expert, or they think I somehow have a solution to a 2017 computer operating system problem. Um, Not, getting to teach them to be able to use LLMs effectively, and some suggestions in there about, using LLMs, whether you use ChatGPT. I started using Claude recently. And somebody said, "Oh, are you using Claude because of the problems with um, with agentic and or Anthropic in the government?" And I was like, "No, I had been paying up for a subscription for it and never use it because I'm a heavy GPT user, and just wanted to see how Claude would perform differently on these problems." And I'm been really impressed with, you know, I, I bounce back and forth between them depending on what problems I want to solve, whether they're sort of system problems or whether they're sort of authorship problems or writing issues that I want to solve. Um, so use LLMs. You should also know when to stop. Stop trying to problem solve, get it out of your hands, particularly if it seems confusing when you get responses from LLMs and you don't know, I don't know what they're talking about here. That's probably a good point to start. You also should stop if data safety feels uncertain. Make sure your data is backed up, then you never have to worry about data safety. Make sure that I use Black Backblaze. I also do other cloud storage for materials, and then have carbon copy cloner that I use, that I will clone stuff on my hard drive every couple of weeks as part of it. I'm a little obsessive about that, and I think that's what's minimized the problems that I had. So here's some things. If data is uncertain, if hardware issues are suspected, you're not going to be able to fix those. You're going to need to take that in and have somebody look at it. So pause and seek kind of advice from folks. Remember this: classify the problem, reduce variables, test safely, interpret results, and then escalate it to someone else if it's too much for you to handle. So if you go to a presentation, you should always get swag. This is the swag I'm offering you. If you go to this link, and I think I can open it up and you can see what I'm talking about. Um, I have a series of LLM prompts that you can put into any LLM, and it should work. And I'll show you some examples. I won't run them because I know we're running short on time. But where'd that go? Did that go? Are you seeing that on the right? It should be in the right window. I've opened up the folder that has this link, will take you to it. It's stored on a Google Drive, and there are different options for prompts. So I'm going to try and there we go. There's one right there. This is one that I put together just for this, because originally this talk was about how to fix the LLM, or how to fix Macs. And I wanted to extend this a little bit. Linda asked me to extend it a little bit. So this is LLM. This is Mac and iOS and iPadOS. I was preparing to present this as a 75-minute presentation at MacStock coming up in May. How this has changed is Mike Potter has said, no, I looked at this. This is the one thing I can kind of take out of the day and put it as an evening thing. Let's use this, but come up with something different. So the MacStock people will get these like you're getting them now. But we're doing a whole different problem solving process and learning process in the evening based on some group work that I do and group work that I teach called open space technology and kind of unconference. So if those terms are familiar with you, that's what we're going to be doing, which will be kind of nice and interactive. But in the meantime, you've got these. You can copy and paste these into any LLM, and it will take you step by step through a problem solving process. So it's telling the LLM that you're a Mac advisor, you're patient friendly and precise. I also kind of wrote it so it would give you legitimate resources with supposedly with links. So suggestions that it can do, suggestions that it should never do, and then beginning script that you can put that, and all you have to do is copy this document. Now, I've also put this in this folder as an RTF file. So it's a text file that you can download these things too. They're download and available, all of them. So the first step is, because we're doing this across all devices, identify the device. Which Apple device are we troubleshooting? So is it a Mac, is it an iPhone, or an iPad? And then it waits for an answer from you. And then it starts to say, what description best fits the problem you're having there? Remember the core kinds of problems I showed earlier on slides? That's built right into this LLM. And then before double true, ask one at a time these questions. Have you restarted the device? I probably should have said shut it down and started it back up. Did anything change before the problem started? So it's asking these core questions that we talked about in decision making around this. And then it starts to isolate the variables. Questions that, like, is it one app or is it the entire device? And so this whole process goes through. And then advanced options only if necessary. Reinstall Mac OS without erasing data. And then stop an escalation language. If troubleshooting becomes complex or risky, say, at this point, we're moving beyond simple troubleshooting. This would be good time for you to involve Apple support and Apple Genius Bar or a trusted technician. And then it gives you likely causes, recommended next steps, and where to stop. So this is one of the variety of ones that I have on here. That's the unified Apple one. There is a iOS iPad troubleshooting prompt, and you can see I've got it in PDF and also in RTF. And then for folks who kind of just want to do it the shorthand way, there's the shorthand way. And what you would put in, and it will give you kind of functionally the same thing. The other one is much more step by step, if you like that type of continuity. And while I'm opening this up, Gemini is telling me what I'm reading. They're everywhere, folks. So you can feel free to download these from that link. Any of these files are downloadable. You can download all of them, stick them on a folder on your desktop, play with them, try them out if you want to. So, does everybody have that URL that needs it? It's very simply bit.ly Mac Trouble.
Yeah, could you bring that
Can't hear you.
slide back up?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. I'm looking at the slide in front of me, but not the slide.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for letting me know.
I will have this on the website, so you've
Yeah.
got it there.
Now, what I do with these, and I do with all of my LLMs, is I use a program called Text Expander, which means I don't have to type these out. It means if I want to run any complicated long prompt, and the thing that I'm doing now with AI is prompt engineering. I'm doing some prompt chaining, and that's a different kind of way, agentic kind of way of using AI. But I don't want to have to type this stuff in. I don't want to have to copy and paste it. So I use an app called Text Expander, which is like a macro app. So if I type semicolon Mac trouble, it will bring up whatever LLM I have associated or whatever prompt engineer I've associated with that, whatever that macro is that I type in. So it's a piece of software that runs in the background that creates macros. I use it for letters. I use it for signatures. I have one, so I run a listserv and I get the same questions all the time. So I have macros set up for email responses for that. But Text Expander is a nice little program. And now I'm loading all my prompt engineers in it. So we are close to end of time. And that's the shortened version. I just kind of showed you that. And just a few, and I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions. Again, a lot of this is material that I think you'll benefit from having when Robert gets the slides up and you can get access to the LLMs to play with it. And you'll also get some logical, from looking at the slides, some logical ways of proceeding through it. This is where you can get to me via email, Jencius@mac.com. I have a website where I put some of my training material on in some format. I do conference presentations and I put some material on there. I did a conference presentation recently on AR and VR headsets in group work, which is another part of my field. You can find the different podcasts that I do at the podtalk.net. There's Vision Profiles, which I just finished with Dave Ginsburg and Eric Bolden and Daniel Burkholder. We did a show talking about the use of the MacBook Neos, which three of us got, and using it for the virtual window display. So you can use this small laptop to have functional windows to use in it. So Vision Profiles, Old Mac Gang on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Gear Up and Go, I do with my son. Old Mac Gang is people over 65. And things concerns about seasoned citizens and their use of computers and issues that they have. Gear Up and Go is travel hardware and software. I do it with my son. Circular Firing Squad is a podcast for counseling that I'm going to probably sunset soon. Tech Savvy Professor, I do with another Eric who's in my field, and we talk about apps that we can use for teaching and hardware. Fade to Chat, Golden Age Cinema. Linda will know this person. Cindy Rotz, who is Chuck Joyner's friend. And she works the registration and comes to Macstock every year. And she and I are doing a podcast that we do pretty much weekly about movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Today and I have to produce it. We just did How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And we talked about that movie. Then there's 15-minute Bites, which is a new one. Dave Ginsburg has been on it. It is 15 minutes long, as close as I can cut it to 15 minutes. And it includes about 2 to 3 minutes, people introducing what tech they're into and what they're doing for 2 to 3 minutes. And then they give me a recipe. And the recipe is something maybe that came from their family, something they have that has special meaning for them. And so it's a recipe show hidden as a tech show. And it's kind of fun. I've got about 4 or 5 up. I just finished one with a colleague of mine, and it was peanut butter potato candy. Yeah, I see the grimaces. Yeah, that's like 1 potato and 3 cups of powdered sugar. So rolled into like a Swiss roll and frozen and then cut up. Um, but there's a story behind that. And then AI productivity workflow, I started in the fall. I just cut a new episode of that. It's been down for a couple of months. And that's another episode I need to do. Regular on Mac Voices Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. with Chuck Joyner. In Touch with iOS with David on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the Mac Show on the British Tech Network on Friday mornings. I am happy to come and talk at any time. I mean, as I retire, I'm going to have to find spaces to do this and a passion that I have. So some topics there that I do: AI productivity, virtual reality headsets, podcasting, cooking apps, which I've gotten into, and meditation apps that I can talk about if you're interested in any of those. So that's it for me. I don't know if there are any questions or comments. I'm going to stop sharing so I can get a full screen of folks who are here. Um, anything oh, Brian, hi, Brian Flanagan Authors.
Okay.
LLM is large language model. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
He just said hello.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good. Let's see what I may have missed this, but just in case, because Kenji also asked for the URL to get the in
to get that,
Yeah, that's so Robert, you're gonna post that up on our
I will post it in the chat.
okay.
Yeah, right now it's
'Cause
let
Kenji
me,
was asking.
yeah.
bit.ly/Mac Trouble.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, there it is.
Awesome. That's what yeah, that is very, very nice. Very well done. Thank you very much. That's good. Good, logical sequence, well thought out processes.
So I've got a comment, Marty. So I'm looking at your links on your website, and on the active podcast links page,
Yeah.
the last 3 podcasts aren't actual links. Fade to Chat, 15-minute bites, and AI productivity.
Okay.
The ones above it are.
I don't.
All right. I will have to hire you as a web designer. Seriously, let me go in and take a look at it. But I don't have to. I won't do it. I won't take up time doing it here. But I'll take a look at it and make sure the links are functional, if that's okay.
Sure. Because I immediately wanted to go to 15-minute bites and take a look. Having just told us about all your podcasts and all your other activities and all your other projects and your everything else you listed here, I'd like to know, don't you have anything to do?
I appreciate that.
He's a
Seemed like,
podcast
you
machine.
could do better. Could do more.
I'm getting, my wife who is retired has told me that I am mentally retired already. I think the youngsters have a term for it called quietly quitting, which means I show up at work every day. I spend time with students. I go in to teach. Yeah, I have to sit through some meetings. But outside of that, I've got the best job in the world. Anything, the stuff that young faculty have to deal with in terms of publish or perish, I'm already tenured. I got an invitation to write a section in the ACA American Counseling Association Encyclopedia on tech and counseling. Yeah, I'm going to write that. A person who's going for tenure wouldn't, because that wouldn't help them towards their tenure. But the beauty is that I get to choose my own path. And so part of this is my own path. Dave calls me a podcast machine.
You are.
Um,
Well,
well,
I'm on
I'm
4 weeks, so I should talk. So, but I only produce one, not four.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but
Three others.
we have to share our process. I mean,
Sure.
I suggested that to Mike and that's one of the things I'm happy to talk about if people are interested in it. I'm sure Dave would do it too, but I know folks like Chuck, they have like 4 channels or a channel for everybody who talks. I just let the software sort it out.
Yeah.
And since what we do on many of our podcasts are transient, it has to be good enough. It's not Da Vinci. It's not gonna last the test of time. It's good for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then nobody's gonna go back and listen to it.
You'd be surprised.
So,
There's people downloading I go sometimes see episode 1 downloaded. That was 10 years ago.
yeah. Okay, but it apparently is still good enough for them to download.
Yeah. It
But
doesn't happen that often
you know,
anymore.
they're not downloading it and go, "Oh, did you hear David said and he should have cleaned that up in post." So yeah, thanks for the question. Thanks for the compliment. But yeah, it really is that I'm kind of shifting my interests, and this is such a good community. I'm talking about the podcast community. David, Chuck, and the user groups,
Mhm.
and Brian's doing a podcast. And it's just it has become my bowling night. My dad only went out once a week to bowl. I go out like 5 nights a week to bowl, you know? So it that's how it is, you know?
Hey, if anybody wants to just copy and paste the links that he's got in there now, you could do that. You just have to copy it until he makes some live links. And what you asked earlier about his,
Yeah, and I clicked on where it goes
you can
down
get to the
to
list, but your links are not live. They're just written. That's the problem. But you can copy. and paste them.
Where is?
Oh,
where
I
is
see what you
it about?
yeah, I got it. I see what you're talking about.
That's what he's probably talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, on Apple Podcasts, yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah, but none of those are live links, so you have to copy.
None of those are actual live links. Yeah.
Where? I don't even know what he's talking about. Where are we?
Okay.
On the podtalk.net, if you click in active
Oh, I see.
podcasts, the drop down for active podcasts, and you can pick what one of those, and
Okay.
it tells you what it's about, and then links,
Okay.
but
I'm
those
not going to
links are
go
not-
there.
Those links aren't live.
Okay.
Okay.
But you can copy it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
First, thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Good information. Very clear. Nice. Yeah. Very nice.
Thanks.
So appreciate it. Thank you.